555. As always, please stay with us. Arena Buffalo News will be coming up in just a moment.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, August 19th, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella. Starting with the weather report. Variable cloudiness today with a thunderstorm. Gusty winds can accompany any downpour, a high of 73. A passing shower during the evening, otherwise partly cloudy tonight, low of 59. For tomorrow, sunshine and a few clouds. The high is 78, the low is 56. For Friday, sunshine and nice, a high of 79, low of 61. For Saturday, a PM thunderstorm, high 78, low 62. Sunday, a shower and thunderstorm, a high 71, low 56. Monday, showers around, a high 73, low 59. And for Tuesday, a shower in the afternoon, high 75, low 60. The pollen count today remains high. Sunrise today was at 6:26 a.m. and sunset tonight is at 8:12 p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Our opening story. Radiation surge spreading into towns south of Buffalo. 9 towns south of Buffalo are now subject to the federal and state investigation into radiological contamination in western New York. But on Tuesday, state environmental officials said the surveys in the south towns will be focusing on fewer locations than what was discovered in Niagara County. Agents from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the State Department of Environmental Conservation were set to be in Aurora, Boston, Brant, Concord, Eden, Evans, Hamburg, Marilla, and Orchard Park Tuesday to request access from property owners to search for elevated levels of radiation. Visiting these communities or any area of interest does not confirm contamination, the DEC wrote in an emailed statement to the news. It means the agencies observed radiological measurements that require closer ground level evaluation and more information is needed. The agencies will not enter the properties for investigation unless the owners give permission, the DEC statement said. The EPA and DEC first conducted aerial surveys throughout western New York in October 2023, searching for elevated levels of radiation. They followed with vehicle-based surveys in 2025. However, the south towns were not included in the vehicle-based surveys. This is just a continuation of the original investigation on the flyover surveys, said DEC Region 9 Acting Director Chad Staniszewski. We're looking at a few discrete areas in the south towns to see whether the anomalies we detected during the flyover surveys are natural or if something was dumped there. Staniszewski noted the areas where higher than background levels of radiation were detected were found in a small number of locations, and it will likely take the DEC and EPA teams just 2 days to visit each of the properties to request permission for further investigation. He also added that some previous findings of elevated radiation in the south towns were due to naturally occurring radiation from elements in the backdrop. Ken Lovett, a spokesperson for Governor Kathy Hochul, said the investigation stretching into southern Erie County is part of the governor's proactive approach to ensure the health and safety of western New York residents. The governor has directed DEC to work in conjunction with EPA and ordered a surge in state resources to perform surveys and testing in the area, Lovett wrote in an emailed statement to the news. This latest step is part of the governor's commitment to take any necessary actions to ensure all communities are protected. In March, 121 property owners in Niagara County received letters from the EPA and DEC informing them of elevated radiation levels found on their properties. Since then, the agencies have visited more than 1,300 properties in Erie and Niagara counties, mostly in Niagara, to conduct ground surveys. Grand Island, the town of Niagara, Niagara Falls, Lewiston, and Lockport are among the municipalities where radiation investigations are ongoing. In its statement, the DEC noted that significant progress has been made in reaching most residents within the areas of interest in Niagara County and Grand Island. Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz said in a statement Tuesday that all sites on Grand Island investigated so far by the EPA and DEC have come back clean. One of those sites included Veterans Park on Bedell Road, according to WGRZ. The DEC continues to investigate for elevated radiation levels on Grand Island, Danaszewski said, noting that about 40 property access agreements were signed during a public meeting on the island Monday evening. Nevertheless, this critical work is made necessary by our agency's area's nuclear legacy, which included participating in the Manhattan Project and decades of unregulated waste disposal, Poloncarz said. The goal is to protect public health and our environment, and we support these agencies' work as they move ahead with their mission. The ground surveys entail EPA and DEC staff methodically walking around the inside of a property with handheld equipment that scans for elevated radiation levels. Sometimes the workers will request to scan the inside of a home as needed. Once those initial surveys are completed, the agencies may request indoor dust or air sampling as well as outdoor soil sampling. The tests are designed to determine whether property owners could be exposed to elevated radiation levels. Nearly 40 properties have received letters as of Tuesday from the EPA and DEC notifying owners that no elevated radiation levels were found there, according to the DEC. The EPA is funding the investigations of the properties under its authority under the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liabilities Act, CERCLA, enacted by Congress in 1980 and also known as Superfund. Although readings found in the yards of some houses by the EPA and DEC could be considered high, they are likely not immediately dangerous to residents, according to health physicals experts interviewed by the news. Background radiation in western New York, however, hover around 10 to 20 microrenton per hour, or UR per HR. If a location measures anything above that, it could mean radioactive waste was dumped there. The highest reading in the data provided to the news was 1,040 UR per HR, about 52 to 104 times the typical background level in western New York. If someone remained continuously at that location 24 hours a day for an entire year, a rough conversion would produce an estimated radiation dose of about 7,926 millirem. Receiving that dose is unlikely, but it exceeds the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission's cleanup standard of 25 millirem per year and the EPA's of 15 millirem per year. I would not evacuate, said Jan Johnson, who has worked in radiation protection for more than 60 years, but it needs to be mitigated. The average American receives a total annual dose of about 360 millirem, mostly from natural sources, according to the U.S. Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. Importantly, in homes and properties where high levels of radiation were found in the soil, the DEC and the EPA may be conducting indoor radon tests. Radon is a gas heavier than air that is produced from decaying radioactive elements. It often builds up in basements and is the leading cause of lung cancer among non-smokers, and the second leading cause of lung cancer overall, according to the EPA. The DEC and EPA took indoor radon readings in at least one Niagara County home, but those results are still pending, according to the homeowner. 4 Niagara County families have requested relocation while the EPA and DCA continue radiation investigations at their homes. It's unclear whether these families have been relocated into suitable long-term homes. Okay, and then there's a website here. If you need that, call the station 716-821-5555. If you're recording, it's necra@dec.ny.gov on NY.gov NECRA. Again, call the station if you need it.
Thank you, Larry. Building under renovation gets set to transform lives. Golisano Institute taking shape with classes just weeks away. As he walks around Golisano Institute for Business and Entrepreneurship, James Stentinger can picture the new school coming to life. There's a first-floor meeting space where guest speakers will share hard-earned wisdom. The high-tech classrooms where students and faculty will meet. The fourth-floor atrium where students will gather in their free time and build friendships. We've had multiple events that we have invited our students in already, and I would say they're excited, said Dettinger, Executive Vice President and Buffalo Regional Director. They're doing high fives. Classes are set to start September 9th, but the school made sure some spaces were finished well ahead of that date to capture the imagination of potential students. They see themselves in here, Dettinger said. That's kind of the key. The new school expects to have about 75 students enrolled when classes get underway. About 60 of them are enrolled in a 2-year business program. The other 15 or so will be in the school's 1-year AI program. The Golisano Institute is renovating a former longtime home of the Buffalo News downtown. The cost of the project is estimated at $30 million, including the purchase price of the building. The school was established by billionaire Tom Golisano, the former owner of the Buffalo Sabres and founder of Paycheck. Golisano opened a Rochester campus of the school in 2023. Leaders of the Buffalo campus have learned from the Rochester's location as they develop their plans. The Golisano Institute has an internship program that has proven successful, Dettinger said. We've had many students in our Rochester campus literally find their pathway, meet their employer, then get hired for an internship and then a full-time job. The school's focus is on preparing its students to join an employer and contribute right away, says Sandra Kelleher, Associate Vice President of Academics. Tom Golisano's philanthropy has given us educators an opportunity to present our students with a classroom full of technology that we can feel like they're at work. Kelleher said there is a natural alignment between the Buffalo and Rochester campuses, including in internships and job opportunities. We want to look at this as Western New York as a whole, not just the opportunities in Buffalo or Rochester, but both, so our students' opportunities are much larger. The majority of the students who enroll in the school tend to be newly graduated from high school, but there are also students who started but didn't complete a college education, and others who have bachelor's degrees and are looking to learn more. The students range in age from 17 to 70. The faculty is a combination of professional educators and experienced business people working side by side in the classroom. The school has also built partnerships in the business community, including with Odo and Ingram Micro. The Golisano Institute will initially use the first, fourth, and fifth floors of the former Buffalo News building. As enrollment grows, the school plans to renovate and expand to the third floor, where the newsroom used to be. Dettinger said the long-range goal for the school is to grow to 500 students. The second floor might be used to incubate small businesses. The Golisano Institute teaches all of its classes in person, Dettinger said. We do not do remote learning, just because we feel in that person is really our way of teaching, he said. And although remote working is something that might exist out in the real world right now, we just feel you lose so much of that collaboration, interaction, if it's done online. The Golisano Institute also asks the students to dress professionally for classes. The school has a room of donated business attire available to students for free to prevent that from being an obstacle. Each Wednesday, instead of classes, the school will host a speaker as part of its Speaking from Experience series, with room for an audience of 700. Among those scheduled so far are Scott Beeler, CEO of Westhair Automotive Group, Darian Bryan, who recently won the Next Level Chef competition, and Joanne Falletta, music director of the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. Following the presentations are opportunities for networking. Each week, students are practicing that handshake, introducing themselves, finding opportunities that we bring to them, Kelleher said. It is truly a key point in our curriculum. The space will be used to host the 43 North semifinals. The Golisano School is expecting applications until August 28th. The next enrollment window will be open in March. As the school gets ready to host students for its first time, Dettinger is hopeful about its impact on the economy. Our goal is to keep the talent in Buffalo, he said. We're not trying to export our students. Certainly they can go wherever they want to go, but the goal is how do we connect them with the local business so they take what they've learned and apply it and create value for local companies. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Mindell's killer gets sentenced to over 37 years. Lorenz's punishment is the same he received after 1993 conviction. Brian Scott Lorenz was sentenced Tuesday to 37.5 years to life in prison for the 1993 killing of Deborah A. Mindell, receiving the same sentence imposed after his original conviction more than 3 decades ago. Mindell, 33, was found dead February 17, 1993, on the dining room floor of her Franklin Street home by her 10-year-old daughter, who was returning from school. Mindell had been strangled with her husband's necktie and stabbed 10 times with a kitchen knife. Lorenz, who turns 57 later this month, has been locked up since he was arrested in Iowa in 1993, a little less than 3 months after Mindell, a nursing student and mother of 2, was killed. His defense attorneys plan to appeal his conviction. In the downtown Buffalo courtroom on Tuesday afternoon, prosecutors asked State Supreme Court Justice Paul Wojtaszek to give Lorenz the same sentence a different judge imposed 12 years ago. This crime is no less horrible today than it was in February of 1993, the Erie County Deputy District Attorney Gene Partridge said. Lisa Mindell Payne, daughter of the victim, during an impassioned presentation in the courtroom, asked the judge for no less of a sentence than the original judge issued. She described her mother as a beautiful, kind soul who deserved so much more life than she was given. Lorenz got 25 years to life for each conviction on 2 murder counts he faced in Mindell's death, with those sentences to run concurrently. He also got 12.5 years to life for the burglary conviction, with that sentence to follow the one for murder. Before Wojtaszek issued his sentence, Lorenz told the judge he had absolute empathy for the Mindell family. I can only imagine what they went through, he said, but I wasn't the one that killed that woman. Defense attorneys Ilan Mazel and Earl Ward asked the judge to run the murder and burglary sentences concurrently rather than consecutively. Mazel and Ward argued the judge was required to order concurrent sentences because prosecutors argued at trial that the murder and burglary were part of the same act by Lorenz. A jury in 1994 convicted Lorenz and another man of murder, but the pair saw their convictions wiped out in 2023. Lorenz's co-defendant, James Pugh, saw the charges against him dismissed in December when prosecutors said they didn't have enough evidence to sustain charges. A jury convicted Lorenz on April 24th of 2 counts of murder and 1 count of burglary, the same charges he was convicted of 32 years earlier, after deliberating a little more than 5 hours. And I have no idea, but they're inserting these websites into this. If you want this, it's link_WPSMCSDD. What are you doing, news? Anyway, and we'll continue with the article. If you need that repeated, station number is 716-821-5555. Lorenz's first trial ended with a mistrial on October 6, 2025, because the jury was deadlocked after deliberating about 26 hours over 5 days. After the verdict, one of the 2 jurors who voted to acquit Lorenz told the news there were glaring doubts about the case and he felt Lorenz was being railroaded. His 1994 conviction was thrown out in August 2023 based on new DNA analysis and because prosecutors at the original trial withheld a relevant note about a piece of physical evidence, a coin found in Lorenz's possession that investigators said they believed was stolen from Mindell's home. The note indicated Debbie Mindell's father-in-law was unable to identify the coin when asked by police. During the process that led to Lorenz's convictions being overturned, the inmate who escaped a state prison was convicted killer Richard Matt, who in 2015 testified Matt admitted to him he killed a woman in the city of Tonawanda in 1993. Wojciech did not allow Lorenz's defense to introduce anything about Matt as a potential suspect in the trials. A state appeals court in September 2024 decision rejected a prosecution request to reinstate the convictions of Lorenz and Pugh. In its ruling, the court took an unusual step of pointing out there was considerable evidence at the hearing that the lead investigators had pressured many witnesses into incriminate and testify against the defendants. The judges were referring to retired City of Tonawanda Police Detective David F. Bentley, whose actions during the investigation became a focal point for Lorenz's defense attorneys. Jurors at this year's trial also listened to the testimony of a woman who took a mysterious phone call hours before Meindl was killed, warning that Meindl's life was in danger.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:21. Today in history, August 19th. 1791, mathematician Benjamin Banneker wrote to the Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson condemning his hypocrisy for owning slaves. In 1812, the U.S. Constitution defeated HMS Guerriere off the coast of Nova Scotia. Witnesses said the British shots bounced off the Constitution's sides as if the ship were made of iron, leading to the ship's nickname, Old Ironsides. In 1934, German voters approved a referendum allowing Adolf Hitler's merger of the presidency and chancellorship by a 90% vote. It resulted in an unprecedented consolidation of power in the young republic, making Hitler, for all intents and purposes, a dictator. In 1936, Joseph Stalin began the great purge of his rivals, prominent old Bolsheviks, as the first show trial opened. All 16 defendants were found guilty and executed. In 1953, Iran's military overthrew democratically elected Premier Mohammad Mossadegh, who had nationalized the country's oil industry. The U.S. and British governments funded and helped organize the coup, which restored the Shah of Iran to power. In 2004, Google went public. The company chose to sell shares in a public auction to make them more available to ordinary people. The initial results were disappointing. $1.67 billion, $85 a share. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The local Buffalo News editorial, Worth the Wait. New Build Stadium offers an experience that goes beyond watching a game. The new Highmark Stadium has opened its doors to fans, revealing a facility that offers far more than a new place to watch the Bills play. The News' Mike Petro has thoroughly chronicled the new stadium's many amenities, but the best thing about the stadium isn't any one of them. It's that the Bills have built a stadium around the experience of being a Bills fan in Western New York. Start with the stadium. The $2.2 billion venue features 2 Mitsubishi video boards for close-up looks at the action, along with more than 60,000 blue and red seats arranged in a gradient pattern that shifts from red to blue and back again around the stadium. Then there are the wider, more expansive concourses. Fans can move around the building while maintaining sightlines to the field. First-level concourses are nearly 3 times as wide in places. Upper-level concourses are about 50% wider, and radiant heaters offer some relief when Western New York weather turns cold. At the return of the blue and red practice, fans spent considerable time exploring the concourses and taking photos with eye-catching installations such as the broken tailgate folding table and a steel beam signed by construction workers. The Buffalo Bills selected more than 45 artists in art teams, many of them well-known local artists and others who have ties to Western New York, to create a collection throughout the stadium. Pulitzer Prize-winning Buffalo News editorial cartoonist Adam Zeiglis is among them. The Buffalo Bills Public Arts Program offers a distinctive opportunity to blend art with athletics while highlighting hometown talent. Add in Family Circle, the park-like setting that serves as the main entrance to the stadium and proved immediately popular with visitors. Fans gathered for photos of 3 massive bison sculptures that light up and help make the plaza a destination of its own. A 1.7-mile Highmark Trail gives visitors another way to explore the campus. Among its attractions is Musical Rush, an interactive walkway with Bills-related audio and sound bites from a game broadcast or a signature song. Families have more to explore too, including a mini turf football field with various youth activities. Some of the most welcome improvements are less glamorous. Hundreds of additional plumbing fixtures and the elimination of the old men's room troughs are mundane compared with the giant bison, but they're exactly the sort of improvements fans will appreciate on game days. Multiple first-level ADA platforms also reflect the team's effort to exceed accessibility standards. Entry and concession technology provide another practical benefit. The practice offered an encouraging early test of the new security and ticketing systems, which appeared to move people into the building efficiently while checkout free market and other self-service technology helped reduce waiting. There are meaningful improvements because they mean more time experienced the game and less time standing in lines. And then there's the food. As the news Francesca Bond wrote after previewing the offerings, the lineup resembled a game show with escalating prizes. Giavetta's, Southern Junction, Fam's Kitchen, Wegmans Beef on Weck, and Babcia's Pierogi are among the local names and flavors represented. The new stadium is not just a place to see a football game. It is a place to spend time with family, explore Buffalo's food, art, and Bills traditions, and experience a state-of-the-art facility that feels distinctly at home in Western New York. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons, the first one's by Adam Zeigler of the Buffalo News. And what it shows is a young person with a tablet in his hand, or iPhone, whatever, and he is looking down and reading that as he's walking along. The second image is of him getting shorter and sort of changing, getting a little frumpy here and there, and he's still looking down at his iPhone or cell phone. The third image is that he has changed into a slug, and the slug is holding the iPhone, the Android or whatever, and it is titled Metamorphosis. And in case you didn't know, Meta is the technology company facing federal trial over social media child safety allegations. The second cartoon is by Gary Carville of Creator Syndicate, and it shows a landlord. This is in the middle of New York City. He's got a brownstone house, and he's showing off to the mayor who's standing next to him. And the landlord says, "Welcome to my property, Mr. Mayor." And the mayor, who is Mandani, he says, "This is our property." Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Everybody's column. When quitting is the healthiest act. August is recognized as National Wellness Month, a time to focus on healthy habits that improve our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. One of the most impactful steps individuals can take toward better health is quitting tobacco. Tobacco use remains the leading cause of preventable disease and death, contributing to heart disease, cancer, stroke, and chronic lung conditions. Beyond its effects on physical health, tobacco addiction can also impact mental health, finances, and quality of life. The good news that it is never too late to quit. The body begins to heal almost immediately after a person stops smoking, with benefits continuing for months and years afterward. More good news. Local residents who want to quit tobacco do not have to do it alone. The New York State Quit Line, 1-866-NY-QUITS, provides free coaching, texting support, and quit smoking resources. During National Wellness Month, we should encourage anyone considering quitting to take advantage of this valuable community resource and begin their journey toward better health. National Wellness Month provides an opportunity for communities, employers, healthcare providers, and families to encourage and support tobacco cessation. Whether through counseling, support groups, or nicotine replacement therapy, there are more resources available than ever to help people succeed. Quitting tobacco is not just a personal health decision. It's an investment in healthier families and stronger communities. By choosing to quit, individuals reduce their risk of serious illness, protect loved ones from secondhand smoke, and set a positive example for future generations. This from Shannon Waddell Collins of West Seneca. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Voters must right the ship. The balance of power is what keeps our democracy strong and functional. This November, voters must exercise the power of the people to restore that balance and reinforce the fact that our Constitution states, by the people. Voting is the ultimate power we have and must use in order to restore the balance. The recent election in Hungary was a perfect example of the power people have. Let's show the world that democracy is alive and the power of the people shall always prevail. And this is written by Joseph Allen of Buffalo. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Liberal values have not prevailed. Times are changing, and it's clear things are not normal. The recent past shows the attempted assassination of a presidential candidate, numerous violent crime stories that go against pre-approved narratives, and then an assassination of a political figure and an attack on free speech. The hard truth is that we have to face the facts. The liberal open society consensus of the baby boomers has failed. I don't blame them for the idea. It was nice in theory, but in practice it has been an utter failure. When statistics and observations aren't what we expect, we shouldn't pretend the results aren't what they are. We should admit it's time to try something else. We pour endless streams of money into schools with increasingly worse results. You can spend 10 times the amount of money and it won't matter, but go observe a homeschooled kid whose parents care to sacrifice their time on him, and you notice a huge difference. We can always chase the root cause of the problem or think it can be fixed by money. The root causes are pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. Truth is, the Democrats, the elites, and Ivy Leagues are panicking. They know there is a vibe shift in the nation. They try and hold on to power they have with hysterical, rhetorical, and act surprised when impressionable young people believe them and act on it violently. It's not too much to ask for safe neighborhoods and strong moral expectations in a nation we can be proud of. This from David Spizpriglagada of Tonawanda.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:32. Some opinion columns. This one is Another Voice, and it's about the environment, and it's written by Howard Faden, MD, and Christina Paget, MD, both of Western New York, who have been lecturing on climate change for 10 years. Health damage from climate change is worsening. The warming of the Earth's temperature is accelerating rapidly. Between the years 2015 and 2020, the average temperature rose 0.5 degrees Celsius. We are experiencing the warmest temperatures ever recorded. This trend parallels rising concentrations of greenhouse gases, particularly carbon dioxide and methane. Carbon dioxide, primarily produced by burning fossil fuels, accounts for approximately 80% of human-caused greenhouse gases. Methane, released from fossil fuel production, agriculture, and landfills, is responsible for about 20% of warming, but traps approximately 80 times more heat than carbon dioxide. Continued production of these gases perpetuates warming, and warming has caused an uptick in extreme weather events such as storms, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, rapidly melting glaciers, rising sea levels, and prominent wildfires. Recent wildfires in Canada and Europe are an example of such events. Destruction of property and entire communities has obvious impacts on human health, as does direct exposure to pollutants emanated from these fires. Smoke from Canadian wildfires created hazardous air quality across the northeastern United States and produced the worst air pollution ever recorded in New York City. The Canadian fires have significantly impacted the air quality in western New York. Prolonged exposure to air pollution containing fine particulate matter, ground-level ozone, carbon dioxide, and other toxins has been linked to increased risk of respiratory infections, exacerbations of asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, cardiovascular disease, stroke, adverse pregnancy outcomes, cancers, and premature death. These exposures have subsequently led to more emergency department visits, hospitalizations, missed school and work days, and increased health care costs. Climate change impacts everyone. Addressing climate change requires reducing dependence on fossil fuels, expanding renewable energy sources, improving energy efficiency, and reducing emissions. Climate action is both an environmental imperative and a public health necessity. Denying climate change will not solve the problem. The time to act is now. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From Froma Harrop, are mainstream Democrats actually taking back the wheel? You couldn't find a wackier candidate than Francesca Hong, the Democratic Socialist, vying to become the governor of Wisconsin. She wanted to defund the police and abolish ICE, topping it all off with a call to end Thanksgiving. Saturday Night Live couldn't have made her up. Hong lost the Democratic primary but left behind some sobering thoughts. She finished second against a sterling Democrat with relevant experience. The winner, David Crowley, is the Milwaukee County executive and an African American born into poverty. Crowley will face Republican Representative Tom Tiffany, a MAGA right-winger who voted against certifying the 2020 election. GOP-aligned groups spent heavily to promote Hong's candidacy for obvious reasons. You know who put Crowley over the top? Rural Wisconsin voters. Over in Michigan, the wily Abdul El Sayed, endorsed by the fringe left leaders, beat Democratic Representative Haley Stevens by a similar tiny margin. She did extraordinarily well in working class areas in and around Detroit. El Sayed flew to victory on the wings of college towns. Could normal Democrats build an alliance between the urban, working class, and rural voters? That might become a more pressing requirement if El Sayed loses to Republican Representative Mike Rogers, which will probably happen. El Sayed has burned bridges with many Jewish voters, a constituency Democrats have traditionally relied upon. He also has a friend, Hassan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11, hanging around his neck. Rogers is an establishment Republican who defended the 2020 election results. He has since veered more toward MAGA and won Donald Trump's endorsement. But Trump's undoubtedly figured that Rogers would have a better chance at the victory in this swing state than a fire-breathing right-winger. And a Rogers win in November could keep majority control of the Senate in Republican hands. Are we done with polls yet? Polls showed both Hong and El Sayed beating their opponents by double digits. The photo finish results suggest the pollsters know nothing. A Marquette poll showed Crowley was supported by only 3% of Democratic primary voters. He left the race believing that Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez would be the stronger Democrat. When Rodriguez later dropped out, Crowley jumped back in. Looking toward 2028, the Democratic National Committee has chosen South Carolina as the site of its first presidential primary. That makes some Democratic socialists uncomfortable. In 2020, South Carolina played a major role in making Joe Biden the Democratic nominee over Bernie Sanders, Vermont. In earlier contests in Iowa and New Hampshire, the generally white and college-educated electorate had sent Sanders toward the head of the pack. Come South Carolina and other Southern Democrat primaries with their huge African-American voting bloc, Biden shot ahead. It wasn't because the voters were conservative, as Sanders grumbled. It's because they cared more about health coverage, racial fairness, and income inequality than the left's boutique issues, defunding police, transgender rights, and the obsession with identity politics. What did Latinx mean? Mostly, it was the belief that Biden could beat Trump and Sanders could not. Black voters favored Biden over Sanders by 4-1. Moderate Democrats may be finally putting up effective resistance to the highly organized fringe left. Step one is reorganizing primaries to better reflect the preferences of the Democratic mainstream. Step two is getting Democratic normies out to vote. Step three is to build on issues regular people care about. Well, they can do it. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. Parents say cost for college is still worth it. For parents looking at the rising cost of college, there's a reality that keeps some of them up at night. 71% expect to take on debt to help their children pay for higher education. Nearly half, 46%, expect to use education loans. Another 21% of parents say they may turn to credit cards or cash advances. 11% of parents anticipate borrowing against their savings, while 9% say they will likely tap the equity in their homes. When it comes to funding their children's future, families can face tough decisions, said Chris McGee, chair of the Washington, D.C.-based College Savings Foundation. While savings may not cover everything, we know that every dollar saved is debt avoided. For all the talk about whether college is still worth the price the debt parents are willing to shoulder suggests that families still believe the answer is yes. The College Savings Foundation's 20th Annual State of Higher Education Savings Survey found 84% of parents say higher education is a good investment in their children's future. But what parents consider higher education is changing, keeping up with AI. A survey of 1,000 parents in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and early 50s comes when a traditional four-year college path is facing more scrutiny. Consider the elevator installer, an HVAC technician, or a plumber. Skilled workers in those fields can earn solid six-figure incomes without spending 4 years in college, and those jobs bring a sense of security in that they are way harder for artificial intelligence to replace. Other paths. 93% of parents plan to help fund their children's post-secondary education, according to the survey. But more parents are being open-minded about what higher education looks like. The menu of possibilities has broadened to include not only four-year colleges and universities, but also other forms of education and training that can lead directly to a career. As the workplace changes dramatically over time, the very best way to prepare for it is through ongoing education and skills building, McGee said. Still, the traditional four-year college experience isn't disappearing from parents' radar. More than half, 53% of parents, anticipate their children will attend traditional four-year public and private colleges, while 12% say their children will attend two-year programs like community college. A cumulative 13% of their children will go for career and technical schools, certifications, and apprenticeships. The willingness to consider other career paths comes at a time when student debt has become one of the biggest financial burdens facing U.S. households. For families trying to avoid being part of the $1.8 trillion student loan debt pile, community colleges and other skills-based education paths generally cost far less than four-year colleges. Technical schools, certificates, and apprenticeships can prepare students for immediate placement in the job market without them starting their adult lives under a mountain of student loan debt. Parental help. For parents who still believe higher education is worth the investment, the next question is, how will they pay for it? More than half of the 93% of parents who plan to help pay for their children's education say savings is their primary funding strategy, according to the survey. Roughly one quarter expect grants, scholarships, or other forms of direct financial aid. The College Savings Foundation pointed out a generational ripple effect from 529 Plans, a saving tool created 3 decades ago to encourage families to save for education. The survey found that 41% of parents said that money from a 529 account helped pay for their own education. Among those parents, 77% said the experience had motivated them to use a 529 plan for their own children. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Meta facing its biggest addiction trial to date, New York. Opening arguments were set to begin Tuesday in what could be Meta's most consequential legal fight yet over youth safety and addiction. If Meta loses the case, it could fundamentally change how the company's social media platforms operate. The case was brought in 2023 by a group of 29 state attorneys general who alleged that Meta intentionally designed its platforms to get young people addicted, boosting its business and harming mental health of children and teens in their states. They also claim that Meta misled the public about the risk of its platforms and that it collected children's data in violation of the Federal Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA. The trial in federal court in Oakland, California will hear arguments from lawyers for 4 of those states: California, Colorado, Kentucky, and New Jersey. Meta denies the allegations. Meta faces thousands of lawsuits claiming that it has addicted and harmed young people, as do Snap, TikTok, and YouTube, and has already lost 2 such cases, putting it on the hook for just shy of $1 billion in damages. But the damages in Tuesday's case could be orders of magnitude higher. The four states collectively seek as much as $1.4 trillion in damages. The proposed financial penalty is nearly as much as Meta's total valuation on Wall Street. Meta has called the allegations unsubstantiated and the massive proposed financial penalty vastly disproportionate to the claims. Opening arguments. In their opening statements, lawyers for the states were to outline claims that Meta's ad-based business model relies on maximizing the amount of time young people spend on its platforms. They claimed that Meta designed features such as recommendation algorithms, infinitely scrolling feeds, likes, and notifications to be intentionally addictive, according to the complaint. The states also allege that Meta has lied to the public about its knowledge of the risks of its platforms, including in public statements in which the company and its executives have said they don't believe they harm children. And they claim Meta is aware that it has collected personal data from users under 13 without parental consent, in violation of COPPA. Lawyers for Meta, meanwhile, were set to argue that the state's case misrepresents its platforms and policies, and that they've failed to prove any real-world harm from Meta's platforms. The company also claims protection under Section 230, which says online platforms can't be held accountable for third-party content, and the First Amendment. Meta argues that the state's COPPA claim would require evidence that the company is aware of a large number of under 13-year-olds it failed to remove from its platforms, and says that all social media companies struggle with identifying underage users. The trial is expected to last for at least 6 weeks and could see testimony from top Meta executives, former Meta employees turned whistleblowers, and researchers who study the impact of social media on young people's mental health. Big tobacco moment. The trial could add to a year of accountability for the tech giant following its earlier court losses. The wave of litigation against Meta and other social media companies from individuals, school districts, and states has been called Big Tech's Big Tobacco moment. A New Mexico jury in March found Meta liable for violating the state's consumer protection laws and failing to protect children from sexual predators. The company was ordered to pay a total of $942 million in damages and make changes such as limiting push notifications. A Los Angeles jury also ordered Meta and YouTube to pay a total of $6 million in damages for intentionally getting a young woman addicted and harming her mental health. Meta said it will appeal both cases. In May, Meta, YouTube, TikTok, and Snap agreed to settle the first of a wave of social media addiction lawsuits brought by school districts, ahead of an expected trial with a Kentucky district. The terms of the settlement were not disclosed, and trial is underway in another case brought by Tennessee's Attorney General alleging that Meta knowingly harmed young people's mental health. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Andres, Winona, Jean, Bryant, George, Borozewski, John, Globnick, Donald, Groan, Florence, Maj, Major, Kenneth, Butch, Martin, Vicky L., Michael Paul, Grow, Robinson, Audrey, and Bill Rasmussen, the visionary founder of ESPN, who brought 24-hour sports coverage to the world in 1979, died on Tuesday at the age of 93. If you need further information on any of these names, give us a call at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars. Happy birthday for Wednesday, August 19th, 2026. You're dynamic, focused, and organized. You present a serious face to the world and have a desire to change society. This is a year of new beginnings, adventures, and major changes. The stars show the kind of day you'll have: 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. Aries, 3 stars. Although mild quarrels might arise about how to share the expense of something, don't let this rankle you. Instead, focus on socializing, the arts, sports, and fun activities with kids. Tonight, check banking details. Taurus, 4 stars. Tread carefully when talking to family members, spouses, partners, and close friends because things are tense today. Pull in your reins a bit. Tonight, be cooperative. Gemini, 3 stars. You can get caught up in squabbles with siblings, relatives, neighbors, and work colleagues, or you can play hooky and have fun doing whatever you want. Tonight, focus on your health. Cancer, 4 stars. Romantic partners must be patient with each other. Likewise, parents must be patient with their kids. Get some physical exercise. Tonight, socialize. Leo, 3 stars. Today, the Sun, Mercury, and Jupiter are in your sign. However, the Moon is at odds with your Sun, triggering domestic arguments and tension with people at home. Tonight, relax at home. Virgo, something going on behind the scenes today might make you feel disgruntled. The mood might affect how you speak to others. Tonight, an interesting conversation. Libra, 3 stars. This continues to be a great time for you to buy wardrobe items, which is not a bad idea because you like to look your best. Avoid money squabbles today. Tonight, maintain your possessions. Scorpio, 4 stars. You should avoid quarrels and power struggles with bosses, parents, teachers, VIPs, and the police. Instead, dabble in secret love affairs or explore avenues in travel, medicine, the law, and publishing. Tonight, define future goals. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Steer clear of controversial subjects today because they will irk you. Instead, decide to have fun with a friend or group. Tonight, privacy. Capricorn, 3 stars. Avoid squabbles with a friend today. Likewise, don't get caught up in fighting a member of a group because what's the point? Tonight, be friendly. Aquarius, 3 stars. There's a high probability that you might have a public argument with someone today. In fact, you might be at odds with a boss, parent, teacher, VIP, or the police. This is not a good idea. Tonight, be modest. Pisces, 4 stars. Don't get bogged down in arguments about politics, religion, or racial issues today. Instead, focus on socializing with others. Tonight, explore. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Hints from Heloise. Replace the head on your toothbrush. Dear Heloise, regarding the person who complained about their toothbrush only vibrating instead of spinning, the fault isn't with the toothbrush. I had the same thing happen to me, and I have a very well-known brand of toothbrush. The problem is with the brush head. I changed mine, and it works fine now. From Jan. Sliders to the rescue. Dear Heloise, I had some baskets I use for extra storage under the bench at the end of my bed. They are great, but they are heavy and hard to pull out because they are on carpet. I got some of the sliders that you can use to move furniture, which come in several sizes, and placed one under each corner of the baskets. Now when I need to pull them out, they slide out easily. And that's from Bonnie. Resetting a toothbrush. Dear Heloise, your column about fake electric toothbrush heads got my attention. My toothbrush stopped spinning months ago, so after reading your column, I thought I must have a fake brush head. I ordered new heads from just to be sure that they were genuine, but the brush still didn't spin. I read online that you can do a motor reset. I did this, and the toothbrush started spinning again. To do this, place the brush on the charger while it's turned off, and press and hold the on/off button for 15 seconds. Don't check it again for at least 30 minutes. At first I didn't think it had worked, but later that night it started spinning again. And that's from Laura. Remove product buildup. Dear Heloise, in response to the subject of product buildup in hair, my hairdresser advised me to shampoo my hair with dishwashing liquid. At first I thought it might be a bit harsh on my hair, but it really worked great. After using my normal conditioner, my hair was back to normal. It was quick, easy, and very inexpensive remedy. From Linda in California. And no more spelling classes. Okay, folks, I gotta take my time with this one because I have to spell things out. Dear Heloise, I heard from a friend of mine in Cody, Wyoming, that their public schools are no longer teaching spelling. They're depending on AI to tell them how to spell a word and all they have to do is put the word in as it sounds. I wonder where their governor lives. Is it in the capital, Capital, or capital, Capitol? Did they have a carrot, Carat, for lunch? Did they get bored, Board, while drawing on a board, Bored? Is their brother a colonel, Kernel, in the Navy? Are they going to have moose, Moose, for dessert? Do they live in the desert or desert? When AI puts the answer up there, how do they know which one to choose? This kind of thing is what I call the dumbing down of America from Dorothy. Dorothy, oh no, or is it no, Know? Please say it isn't so, or so, SEW. Yeah, I looked it up, and sure enough, I read that many schools have stopped implementing weekly spelling tests and a memorization of lists of words. Now schools seem to favor broader phonics and word patterns, that is, understanding word parts and the root of the word. From Heloise. Oh, Larry.
How do you spell that? Okay. Administration moves to rescind forest's rules. This Trump administration took a step toward rescinding a decades-old rule that protects undeveloped forests Tuesday, a move it says will help manage wildfire risk, but which environmental groups oppose, saying it would do the opposite. The proposed rule filed by the Forest Service would rescind the 2001 Roadless Area Conservation Rule, which bans logging, roads, and mining in undeveloped forests, and move authority to the National Forest Managers, according to a news release from the Department of Agriculture. Rescinding the rule would improve forest health and reduce wildfire risk. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rowland said, environmental groups argue that ending the rule would increase wildfire risk by exposing more forest land to human activity. This year, 7.3 million acres burned in about 49,000 U.S. wildfires through Monday, according to the National Interagency Fire Center. And White House defends Trump voting by mail. Washington. The White House on Tuesday defended President Trump's ability to vote by mail after reports the president cast his ballot by mail in Florida's Republican primary despite previously blasting mail-in ballots as cheating. As president, Trump has said the Save America Act has common sense exceptions for Americans to use mail-in ballots for illness, disability, military, or travel. But universal mail-in voting should not be allowed because it's highly susceptible to fraud, White House spokeswoman Olivia Wales said. As everyone knows, the president is a resident of Palm Beach and participates in Florida elections. But he obviously primarily lives at the White House in Washington, D.C., Wales said. Politico reported on Monday that Trump voted by mail in Florida's Republican primary, citing local voting records. Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections did not immediately respond for a request for comment. And briefly, well, I guess not briefly, because we don't have any time. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, August 19th on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beanan
and Linda Ranella.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a continuation of our reading of the Buffalo News. Stay with us for that. Also at 11 o'clock is the New York Times Style section. And at noon, we have the USA Today. Stay with us for these readings and more throughout the rest of the day. Feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, or questions. Our phone number is 716-821-5555. And as I mentioned, our agency website is nfradioreading.org. Stay with us. Our Read the Buffalo News will be coming up in just a few seconds. We had a small glitch in our computer software, So I'm just vamping while I can just play a little music.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beanon.
On to some local and regional news. Yes, I'm here. Oh, Bills giving back, not sitting well with everyone. The Buffalo Bills spent more than $4 million in the community over the past year as part of initiatives tied to the Community Benefits Agreement for the new stadium. The team also followed through on the recommendations of community groups and Community Benefits Oversight Committee by investing more than $936,000 into youth initiatives, which is about $236,000 more than the year prior. But the Bills continue to spend a significant portion of the required investment as part of the CBA over the 33-year life of the stadium lease and construction period on in-kind spending, including donated tickets, items, and experiences. They put $1.4 million towards in-kind spending, or about 36% of the $4.1 million total investment made from April 25 through March. The team says this is the most it has spent as part of the CBA specific funding in the past 3 years, and it doesn't count other community initiatives unrelated to the agreement. The team, which is required to spend at least $3 million each year, is now up to $11.4 million since the deal began in 2023. The total investment has gone up each of the past 2 years. However, the amount of in-kind spending by the Bills has rubbed some oversight committee members the wrong way. One reiterated during a meeting Monday the importance of the team committing more cash to the many needy organizations around Western New York. Mo Simbundu, Director of Community Relations for Governor Kathy Hochul, said while the team can't solve all the community's needs on its own, he encouraged the team to think about more cash spending on community initiatives during the latest fiscal year, which began April 1st. At a time when a lot of non-for-profits and community groups are struggling, it becomes even more critical if opportunities are available to provide cash, grants, or something invested, Simbundu said. I think that would be the greatest impact. It's wonderful to give organizations tickets and give them jerseys for fundraisers, but we'd also like you to consider that we might have a lot of needs right now. Members also asked that the bills bring in more of the organizations that are benefiting from the team's community spending to help gain a greater understanding of the impact it is having on the people they're serving. Rhonda Frederick, Director of Community Giving at West Hare Automotive Group, said members would like to be more outcome-based so it helps to know what the organizations are doing with the money. Simbundo added it would be standard practice for one organization to present to the Oversight Committee at each monthly meeting. A few have done so, but not on a consistent basis. The team does not release how much each individual donation was worth in a report or how much individual organizations get. Included in a report published in July, the team also spent $1.9 million on community and civic programs and $1.2 million on economic development. As part of those efforts, the Bills spent over $782,000 on small business and economic inclusion and put nearly $460,000 into health and wellness, including mental health. The youth and education piece includes after-school and sports programs, where the Bills donated over $559,000, as well as donated tickets, items, and experiences and other educational endeavors, like career exploration. This portion of our investment is very focused on the objectives of the CBA, said Penny Samia, Vice President of the Stadium Relations for the Bills. We are happy to see the youth investments grow because we want to be intentional about it, he added. We heard from the community and the CBOC, and we made good on our focus. Samia said the team is also proud of the efforts being made in workforce development, which was not a major focus before the CBA. The Bills invested $62,000 in workforce development and related initiatives, in addition to hands-on involvement and active collaboration in workforce-related programming and community groups. Between youth and community programs, the bills donated $863,000 in tickets, items, and experiences. Samia said donated tickets reduce barriers to getting to a game, especially at the new stadium, which demand has significantly increased, and are used in critical fundraising efforts by organizations. While Oversight Committee members provide recommendations to the team on community needs and vulnerabilities, the bills have the final say over how the money is spent. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Rivera shares bill that calls for Buffalo Schools monitor. The state legislature is not in session until January, but a bill directing the state education department to appoint a state monitor to oversee the Buffalo Public School District and its school board has already been introduced. Assemblymember Jonathan D. Rivera on Tuesday shared Bill 11634A, which has already been reviewed by the Assembly's Rules and Education Committees. Like other state legislation, the bill has to pass both houses and receive the governor's signature before it becomes official. Rivera has said previously that allegations of misconduct by current and former district leaders, as well as a lack of public faith in the school board's decision-making, are among the reasons he is taking political action to install a monitor. When a school district is facing financial instability, internal conflict, allegations of misconduct, and concerns raised by its own elected board members, the status quo is no longer acceptable, Rivera said. The public has every right to demand transparency and accountability. I think at this point, state intervention is necessary. Rivera's bill outlines the qualifications and expectations for the state education department's appointee. The bill said the monitor would not be a voting member of the board, but would have the power to override an adopted or proposed resolution if it violates state law, the rules of the Board of Regents, the regulations of the commissioner, or is inconsistent with the terms of the financial plan or academic improvement plan. The monitor would be paid for by Buffalo Schools, but would be required to hold 3 public hearings within the first 60 days following appointment, attend the Buffalo School Board's meetings, work collaboratively to determine a conflict of interest policy, ensure fidelity to financial and academic plans, among other responsibilities. Much of the proposed bill would expire June 30th, 2030. Rivera won the Democratic primary in June to appear on the ballot for the New York 61st Senate District this fall. Rivera's bill follows a visit by Education Commissioner Betty A. Rosa to Buffalo Schools offices in City Hall on July 29th. Rosa met with district leaders for several hours, then told the media she would take the immediate step of appointing a state advisor, later determined to be Michael Bennett, a former superintendent from Greenville Schools near Albany. Rosa said at the time she was leaning toward belief that Buffalo Schools would need a monitor, but emphasized Buffalo's representatives at the state level needed to pass legislation, much like Rochester City Schools did in 2020. Bennett's role is to advise and direct state resources to Buffalo Schools before the new year begins. September 3rd. Bennett told community education leaders at a recent forum that he and Regional District Superintendent Michael Capuana would meet weekly with Interim Superintendent Ebony Prophet Bullock to discuss the district's needs during its leadership transition. The role of a monitor, however, would be much more intensive. Still, Rivera, in a news release, said the move would not mean a loss of autonomy for the school district. The goal is not to replace local control. The goal is to restore confidence in local control, Rivera said. A state monitor will help ensure that decisions are made transparently, that taxpayer dollars are spent responsibly, and that the focus returns to where it belongs, which is the classroom. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. 2 shorts. The first one is from Alan Pergament. Demler back on WGRZ after caring for mother. WGRZ TV, Channel 2, anchor Mary Alice Demler returned to the air on the 5 p.m. newscast Monday and immediately explained her 3-month absence for family leave was to take care of her 95-year-old mother, Bernice, after co-anchor Scott Levin welcomed his very good friend back at the top of the newscast that actually started a few minutes before 5 p.m., Demler spoke for about 45 seconds about her absence. Demler, who is about to celebrate her 33rd year at Channel 2, and Levin are currently the longest-serving anchor team on Buffalo television. They've been co-anchoring the main newscast since 2002, although Levin left the station for 3 months to work in the car industry before returning to Channel 2. And Western New York dentist Shatkin helps establish a national group. Prominent Western New York dentist Dr. Todd E. Shatkin has co-founded a national dental support organization. The recently announced Implant Centers of America, a clinician-led organization focused on implant-supported restorative dentistry, brings together 9 dental offices and 2 business units across New York, New Jersey, Kentucky, Missouri, Colorado, and Hawaii. The Impact dentists who are part of the organization retain ownership and clinical decision-making within their practices, but gain shared resources, technology, education, and infrastructure from the larger platform, its organizers said. For example, Shatkin retains ownership and operation of his practice, the Aesthetic Association Center for Dentistry, but will now be supported by centralized revenue cycle management, accounting, marketing, and procurement through the Implant Centers of America. Together, we're bringing leading implant dentists and practices from across the country around a shared vision, combining experience, technology, education, and proven clinical protocols to give more patients access to care that can restore their ability to eat, speak, and smile, said Shatkin, co-founder, chairman, and chief clinical officer of the Implant Centers of America. Rodman Rodriguez, co-founder and CEO of Implant Centers of America, said on LinkedIn that the formation of the organization took more than 2 years. Rodriguez has worked with Shatkin before as a senior lecturer and senior advisor, according to his LinkedIn profile. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Providers of rape crisis services decry fund cuts. Albany, rape crisis program providers, advocates for children, and lawmakers from across the state implored Governor Kathy Hochul on Tuesday to restore more than $5 million in funding they said is desperately needed to keep services for survivors fully operating. The state's Office of Victim Services awarded the money, which comes from the Federal Victims of Crime Act, to applicants such as rape crisis facilities and advocacy centers for children. The state added nearly $53 million to put the total amount available for applicants at $126.5 million. But OVS said an unprecedented surge in applications and recipients led to fewer dollars for many recipients. We pride ourselves on being there when we are needed, and let me be clear. Our community needs us and the care that we provide more and more each day. Meredith Oderkirk, Director of Public Affairs for Planned Parenthood in Central and Western New York. It operates Restore, R-E-S-T-O-R-E, which she identified as the solely recognized sexual assault services program in Genesee, Orleans, Wyoming, Livingston, and Monroe counties. It is facing a 49% reduction in its funding from OVS, she said. Oderkirk said in July alone, calls to the Restore hotline increased 56% compared to July 2025. Between July 2024 and July 2025, she said hospital accompaniments with survivors increased by 88%. That is what makes this cut so alarming, Oderkirk said during a virtual news conference. She said Restore is looking at every way to reduce expenses and stretch its resources. But a cut like this, with a need in our community and the price of providing care is only increasing, is simply untenable. Teresa Roth, the executive director of the Williamsville-based New York State Children's Alliance, which represents 48 child association advocacy centers, or CACS, across the state, said the majority of the 30,000 children served by the centers last year were survivors of sexual violence. She said the children require specialized medical and mental health care, advocates to assist their families, and trained professionals who can respond without causing additional trauma. No child should take that incredibly brave step only to find that the help they need is no longer there, said Roth, a native of the village of Akron who previously led the Justice for Children Advocacy Center in Genesee, Orleans, and Wyoming counties. Just last year, local and state lawmakers doubled funding for CACs after a decade without an increase. Roth said, and this year, for the first time, children in all 62 counties had access to Child Advocacy Center in their own county. But she said the cuts now threaten to take that away. She said CACs statewide lost $6.6 million in the awards, a 31% cut. She said 6 CACs that served 10 counties received no award. Today, CAC's ability to provide these services is at dire risk, said Roth. CACs are now facing painful decisions about cutting staff and in some communities closing offices altogether. Janine Cava, a spokesperson for OVS, said the agency received an unprecedented number of applications for the federal money this year, with 316 applicants seeking $621 million over 2 years. That, she said, exceeded the available funding by $333.1 million. Never in its history has OVS received that many applicants seeking that level of funding, Cava said. Every RFA begins a new funding cycle. OVS cannot provide preferential treatment to currently funded programs or consider current funding when making award decisions. The incredible demand, the state's competitive procurement process, and federal rules and funding uncertainty required us to make difficult decisions. Cava said the $126.5 million made available was the single largest investment in survivor services in the state's history. Groups calling to restore funding included advocates and providers from Broome and Sullivan counties and New York City, including Sadie Mahoney, Chief Program Officer at Kingsbridge Heights Community Center in the Bronx. It lost all of its OVS funding. We never in a million years anticipated losing the award, Mahoney said, adding that it will likely lead to the dilution of the center's focus on survivors and crisis intervention. Assemblymember Jeffrey Dinowitz, Democrat Bronx, called the elimination of funding for the center stunning, short-sighted, and foolish. Frankly, it's stupid and it's mean, Dinowitz said, telling reporters, saying that the center has helped thousands of sexual assault survivors. Assembly members Catalina Cruz, Democrat Queens, Linda Rosenthal, Democrat Manhattan, and Senator Leah Webb, Democrat Binghamton, all called on Hochul to restore the funding. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:17. On to sports. Sports shorts. First one, NFL. Goodell says league will have team outside of U.S. Given the increasing amount of international games, Commissioner Roger Goodell said it's a foregone conclusion that the NFL will have a team based outside of the United States. At some point, there will be NFL teams outside the USA. I have no doubt this will happen one day, Goodell told former NFL player Marcus Kuhn for German broadcaster RTV/NTV. Goodell didn't stop there, saying that once an NFL team has set up camp in a foreign country, its home field potentially could serve as a host to a Super Bowl. There are definitely international cities that could host something like that, Goodell said, but we would like to see an NFL team in such a city first. The NFL will play an all-time high 9 games outside the United States this season, including 3 in England. The 2026 slate features games across 4 continents, including first-time host countries France, Paris, Australia, Melbourne. Rio de Janeiro is a host city for the first time, and while other games will be in Munich, Madrid, and Mexico City. Tennis. U.S. Open gives Venus a wild card. Venus Williams received one of 7 wild cards on Tuesday for the upcoming singles tournament at the U.S. Open. The United States Tennis Association said there was 1 wild card remaining, with many wondering if her sister would get an invitation to the New York-based tournament, which begins August 30th. And it's only money, people. Jordan's 1998 jersey for sale. Want to own one of the jerseys Michael Jordan wore during the 1998 NBA Finals when he won his 6th and final championship with the Chicago Bulls? will then find a way to access at least $10 million by September 15th. That's the estimated floor for the bidding on the Jordan jersey that will be conducted by the auction house Jupiter per The Athletic. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Hairston Bishop returned to banged up secondary. This is in the Buffalo Bills football realm. The Buffalo Bills got some reinforcements back in their secondary Tuesday. A pair of projected starters, safety Cole Bishop and cornerback Maxwell Hairston, returned to practice after having missed time recently, including Saturday's preseason opener against the Carolina Panthers at Highmark Stadium. It felt good to be back there with my brothers, most importantly, Hairston said. Body felt good. Didn't have to think about it, so it was a good day at practice. Hairston told reporters he was dealing with a groin injury. It ended up not being nearly as serious as the knee injury he suffered in training camp last year, one that put him on the shelf to begin his rookie season. Just knowing what this wasn't anywhere close to what I got last year, so being thankful in that regard, and then obviously doing everything I can, controlling the controllables, getting the treatment for my body, getting it strong, he said. I'm just happy I could be back out there. While Hairston was out, second-round rookie cornerback David Igbinosun started against the Panthers. That experience was a positive for Igbinosun, but the Bills wanted Harrison back as soon as possible so as to continue getting him reps in Jim Leonard's new defense. Anytime corners go out, to me the first thing to go is their tempo, right? They start playing too fast, or sometimes your eyes just get a little bit messed up, Leonard, the team's first-year defensive coordinator, said Tuesday. So obviously, every time you lose reps, you feel like you're falling behind and having to catch up. I don't think he'll have any issues as far as schematically what we're asking them to do or communication on the field. It's how fast can they snap back into playing with the right tempo, playing with the right technique. Hairston said the Bills' new scheme actually allows him to play a bit slower, in a good way, he said, than he was able to as a rookie. The Bills are likely to play more man coverage under Leonard than they did under previous head coach Sean McDermott and coordinator Bobby Babich. As such, Hairston will need to be more calm at the line of scrimmage. The confidence I have now, I feel like going into year 2, it's really my year 1 as far as knowing what to expect, knowing how to attack it, and then just going out there and playing confident, he said. Leonard in the box. Leonard will have a different vantage point for Saturday's second preseason game against the Browns. After calling the defense from the sidelines against the Panthers, he'll move to the coach's box in Cleveland. See how that feels, he said. It will be a change for Leonard, who has spent the majority of his college and NFL coaching career on the sideline, save for a few games last season with the Broncos. Just feeling the emotion, the direct communication and conversations you can have, and not have to play the telephone game a little bit, Leonard said. I've always enjoyed that as a coach, as a player as well. But at the same time, it might be right for me to go up and have the vantage point and be able to see it from there. So I'm going to feel out both sides here in the preseason and then make the decision going into the regular season. Offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael will also rotate between the sideline and in the coach's booth for the first 2 preseason games. 41,000 for practice. An announced crowd of 41,000 fans attended Tuesday's open practice, which provided an opportunity to see the new Highmark Stadium up close for the first time. Fans lined up outside as early as 5:30 a.m. Not me, I was sleeping. That atmosphere made the stadium lively, with music blaring and players ready to go, having come off a walk-through practice the day before. The new stadium jitters are gone, and you're just back to playing football, so it's fun, outside linebacker Bradley Chubb told reporters after practice. It's just like you know what the city of Buffalo is like. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. And this is a report also on the Bills. This is from Catherine Fitzgerald. Wide receiver Pettis leans on past chemistry with Allen. With a number of Buffalo Bills wide receivers not participating in Tuesday's practice inside Highmark Stadium, Dante Pettis was able to get more opportunities. The ninth-year veteran took advantage of them. The Bills were without wide receivers Keon Coleman, Khalil Shalir, Shakir, Skylar Bell, and Terrell Shavers on Tuesday. Coleman, Shakir, and Shavers were all present on the sidelines, though Coleman was in a low walking boot on his right foot. Quentin Skinner did not take to the field, and DJ Moore did not participate in team drills. Pettis, a second-round pick in the 2018 draft, joined the Bills during training camp, but he has known Bills quarterback Josh Allen since their pre-draft days, and Pettis had trained with both Josh Allen and backup quarterback Kyle Allen when he was coming out of college at Washington. Pettis was drafted by the 49ers and spent the last 2 seasons with the Saints. So since 2018, Pettis has known enough about Josh Allen's personality. He didn't begin his training camp from scratch. I definitely already knew it, Pettis said. It's great to see that he doesn't change at all, and you can tell that's why the team is the way it is. Everyone's really close, and you know they work hard, for sure. But there's definitely a lot of jokes going around, too, which is cool to see that it's not such a stressful environment. It's a free environment, which is cool. Tuesday's thin group of available receivers also freed up Pettis to make more plays. He had perhaps the touchdown of the day during a 11-on-11, with Allen finding him for a score deep right. Defensive backs Sam Franklin Jr. and Jordan Hancock discussed the play after, with perhaps miscommunication between the two. I had just had like a deep corner route, and the safety was a little too far inside, and I think Josh just saw that and gave me a good ball, and I ran with it, Pettis said of the play. Presuming the Bills' top-tier receivers don't miss too much time, Moore, Shakir, Palmer, and Coleman figure to be the top 4 receivers when the season opens. Pettis knows he can make an impact on special teams as well. He was part of Tuesday's punt return crew, as both Mitch Wishnowsky and Tommy Doman Jr. got some punting reps Tuesday morning in the stadium. Pettis did come up a little funny toward the end of practice, and he got attention from athletic trainers, but he finished practice and was not concerned afterwards. I'm all right, I'll be good, he said, just a little tweak, I'm fine. Tuesday also gave Pettis another taste of Bills Mafia. He had been with the 49ers, Giants, Bears, and Saints, and this his 5th and most unique fan base. This fan base is amazing. I've never seen this many fans at practice before, so it's really cool to see, Pettis said. It took me about an hour to get here this morning, and I see why. And up next, the Bills head to Cleveland for a joint practice with the Browns on Thursday, ahead of their second preseason game at 1 p.m. Saturday. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Turning to Buffalo Bulls football. A speedy tight end? Bulls think they have one. Transfer Walker brings unique skill set to UB. When University of Buffalo football players were asked to choose an under-the-radar player to keep an eye on in the season, one of the Bulls' new tight end kept coming up. That player was Clint Walker, a native of Goshen, Indiana, who arrived to UB from Division II Davenport University in January. He made some noise in spring practice while ingratiating himself to the Bulls' passing game almost immediately. At 6'2", 242 pounds, Walker appears to be primed for a key role in Coach Pete Lembo's passing attack. Some of Walker's teammates were even unafraid to name the transfer tight end, yes, a tight end, as the team's fastest man. Walker has been praised for his blocking and his athletic ability, may even lead to some running plays. Asked what he believes Walker's strength is, tight ends coach Ron Whitcomb said he could not pick one thing. I think his number one strength is that he can do everything, Whitcomb said. He can block on the perimeter. He can block in the box. He can be split outside as a receiving tight end, and then we can put him in the box and give him a bunch of different presentations. So him being multiple, I think, is his best strength. Walker's role at tight end. Walker played a unique role as Davenport's tight end last season. In addition to being a receiving threat, Walker's number was called for running plays. He scored a 27-yard rushing touchdown and finished the Panthers' 2025 season with 9 carries for 73 yards. He was an honorable mention on the All-Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference team at Davenport, despite having made just 13 receptions for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. He caught 3 passes across his first 3 years as a Panther. From my perspective, I have different type of mindset. When I'm in the run game and the pass game, Walker said. It's a different perspective or mindset that I have. So the reason that I believe that I've made some good plays is all of my training. I try to be as good as the O-line at blocking, as good as the receivers at running routes. In 2023, Evan King led all UB tight ends with 9 receptions for 68 yards. In 2024, Williamsville's Jake Orlando recorded 11 receptions for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. Walker's performances in recent practices can give Bulls fans confidence that he'll be involved more often than previous tight ends. All the skills that he's showing here at Buffalo, he demonstrated at Davenport, Whitcomb said. They used him in multiple ways. He was playing outside the box, inside the box. No matter how many passes Walker catches, he and the rest of UB's tight ends will certainly have to run and pass protect. Whitcomb said the offensive line are our cousins, and his tight ends study with the O-line line coach Cooper Williams and his unit often to help secure the edge. We speak the same language as them, Whitcomb said. If I was removed, they would know no difference being with Coach Williams. Walker takes pride in using his hands and strength to block, and he is taken to Whitcomb's coaching well. He's not going to scream at you or try to make you nervous or anything like that, Walker said. He's going to try to help you be the best version of you for the whole tight end room. Trevor Wilson, a 6'3", 240-pound fifth-year tight end, transferred from Campbell University to Buffalo with some pass-catching experience as well. Of Wilson's 31 career receptions, 22 of them for 193 yards and 1 touchdown came in 2025. Before that, he spent 3 seasons at Robert Morris, where he had 9 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown in the 2024 season opener. Sophomore Michael Glatko and junior Nick Leonard, who had a boot on his right leg during Friday's practice, are returners who have yet to see action on offense. At 6'4", 245-pound Pennsylvania native, Galatko appeared in 3 games on special teams last fall. T.J. Sabatucci is a 6'2", 245-pound freshman from Pittsburgh. Although no local leaders have emerged in the tight end room, Whitcomb is pleased that they've led by example with their work ethic. The group is very fun to coach, and I think the best characteristic of this group is I've been rotating a lot of different tight ends, Whitcomb said. They've all responded well, and none of them are very vocal, but I do think that they lead through what they do on the field. A high-character group and very coachable. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:32. On to Asking Eric. 39-year-old friend too anxious to find employment. Dear Eric, my longtime friend has a 39-year-old son who refuses to look for a job. His last job was 7 years ago. His mother found a job for him, but his employer passed away. He is bright, likable, talented, good-looking, and in good shape. His excuses, to name a few: his father died 18 years ago. He has sleep anxiety disorder, so he cannot get to a job at the required start time. He has general anxiety. As a result of his not working and constant need for financial support, his mother is pressured by him to keep him fed and provide a room over his head. She is quite miserable with the pressure of this dilemma. She has limited funds and is of retirement age. I have suggested that she needs to stop supporting him, or at most supply him with a few months of rent and food with an ultimatum of an end date. I think there must be professionals that can help this man. This situation seems to have become a real problem. Can you give my friends, he is my friend also, advice on how to find such a professional and the tools and steps forward to solve this debilitating problem? From deeply concerned friend. Dear friend, your younger friend may believe that the barriers in his life are insurmountable, but that belief is not fact. The longer he stays stuck, the worse he will make the situation for himself and for his mother. He doesn't have to solve everything all at once, but he should take one step in the direction of a solution. The first step might be therapy. There are remedies and accommodations for the anxiety. A therapist can help him process and also help him work up alternatives that meet him where he is. One solution, for instance, might be a remote job with flexible start times. Nothing will seem like a good fit in abstraction. He has to try. A career counselor can point him to resources and options. He might also consider interning, seeking a mentor, volunteering, or further education. He has to do things that prove to himself and others that he is open to growth. As to his mother, a clear boundary is necessary. She's doing herself a disservice by putting her financial future in jeopardy. It is a fact of life that he needs an income of some sort. He has to accept that. Encourage her to come up with a schedule of dates for when certain aspects of her support will end or change. Have her go over it with her son. She can discuss adjustments to it if she wants, but they have to leave the conversation with the shared agreement that this situation isn't tenable as it is. It will not continue, and he is going to have to make strides to change. Dear Eric, a friend of mine cuts my hair. He is a very good person and a talented barber, but every time I sit down for a haircut, the conversation quickly turns to religion. I respect his beliefs and have no problem with people discussing their faith. However, it has reached a point where nearly every haircut becomes a religious discussion. For me, getting a haircut is a chance to relax, unwind, take a break from the stresses of daily life. I value our friendship and do not want to hurt his feelings. But I also wish he would understand that I am not always interested in discussing religion while getting my hair cut. Sometimes I would simply prefer a casual conversation or even a few moments of quiet. How can I respectfully communicate my feelings and set boundaries without damaging our friendship? From Hair and Holiness. Dear Hair, start by sharing your observation and then share your request. I notice that during haircuts, the topic of religion often comes up. I respect your beliefs, but I'd rather not talk about religion. I enjoy our time together and I appreciate your skill. Would you be willing to talk about other things during haircuts? Hopefully he gets it and agrees. Even though you're friends, you're also a client, and one would hope that he'd be able to shift gears when a client lets him know about a preference. Moreover, one would hope that he'd listen to a friend who made the request. There's a possibility that he pushes back. He may say that religion is important to him and that's what he wants to talk about. There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to talk about what interests him in the right context, but that kind of recalcitrance would suggest he's less interested in a conversation and more interested in a captive audience. In that case, for the sake of the friendship, you might want to find another barber. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The following article is analysis. It was on the front page, but it is analysis. War has failed to crush Iran-led resistance axis. Amman, Jordan. When the U.S. launched the Iran war nearly 6 months ago, it was to be the coup de grace in dismantling the so-called Axis of Resistance, an Iranian-led alliance of armed groups and governments arrayed against the United States and Israel. The Axis included not just the militant groups Hamas and Hezbollah, but Yemen's Houthi rebels, militias in Syria and Iraq, and the governments of Syria's then-dictator Bashar Assad. The thinking was that the Axis tentacles weakened, if not vanquished, all that would remain, as Israel and the U.S. officials often said, would be the head of the octopus, Iran. But it now appears reports of the Axis unraveling are exaggerated. The Islamic Republic, far from capitulating under the U.S. and Israel's withering assault, has compounded its leverage by closing the Strait of Hormuz. Hamas and Hezbollah remain stubbornly in place, with the latter maintaining its lethality even as Iraqi militias, defying Baghdad's attempts at defanging them, have launched attacks on America's Persian Gulf allies. And though Assad has been ousted from Syria, the Houthis in Yemen now threaten to restart their long-running feud with Saudi Arabia and seal another crucial choke point, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, linking the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Such a move would further roil already skittish energy markets. Never has the resistance axis been as strong as it is today, wrote Ali Karzai, a hardliner who was a member of the Iranian Parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, in a post on X Saturday. Though Syria was a big loss, that must be compensated, he said. The rest of the Axis members were in the strongest condition they have ever been in the history of their resistance. Analysts say statements such as Kazarian's overstate the case, but they nevertheless acknowledge the Axis has moved and proved more resilient than expected. Although there is little doubt the axis has diminished compared to what it was a few years ago, there is now a period of slow, dawning realization that the way it's built has made it able to match the moment, said Peter Salisbury, a professor at Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs, who recently published a report on the Axis evolution for the Century Foundation think tank. In June, the U.S. and Iran signed a memorandum of understanding that called for a 60-day end of hostilities to allow time to negotiate an end to the conflict. The memorandum expired Monday, and efforts to end the war appear to be at a standstill. But when the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran on February 28th, it appeared to be an opportune moment to strike. For decades, Tehran had poured billions of dollars funding training and arming militias across the Middle East that shared its enmity toward the U.S. and Israel, establishing what analysts called a ring of fire around Israel, along with a forward line of defense that would help defend Iran in case of American or Israeli attack. But after the Hamas-led attack on October 7, 2023, Israel went on the offensive. Even as it annihilated Hamas in Gaza, it pummeled Hezbollah in Lebanon, decimating the group's much-vaunted arsenal and killing the upper echelons of its leadership. Then the Houthis began hitting Israel and Red Sea shipping, and the U.S. deployed its navy to fight back, leading the rebel group to accept a truce, and Israeli strikes forced the group's senior leaders underground. In Iraq, militias did little more than the occasional half-hearted attack on U.S. bases in the country. Assad's Syria, meanwhile, collapsed in 2024 under the weight of a rebel offensive, denying Tehran an essential land corridor to Hezbollah, and the only state partner of the Axis aside from Iran. Our actions are taking apart the Axis brick by brick, said a triumphant-sounding Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu near the end of 2024. In June 2025, Netanyahu and President Trump had launched the 12-day war against Iran. With only a feeble response from the Axis' other members, the decades of blood and treasure Iran invested in the Axis seemed a waste. Then in February, Netanyahu attacked once more, this time with Trump in tow, all of which is why the Axis resurgence has come as a surprise. Since the start of Operation Epic Fury, as the war on Iran was called, the various Axis members have swung into action. Iraqi militias have lobbed drones and rockets on U.S. bases in the country and have been blamed for attacks on Saudi Arabia, a claim they deny. The Houthis, though they mostly stayed out of the fight in the beginning, started their own blockade on Saudi shipping in July. But the most unexpected turn has come from Hezbollah. Thought to be an all but spent force only a few months ago, it put up a vigorous defense against Israel's ground invasion in Lebanon, incorporated new tactics and weapons, including drones, in its combat doctrine. It also appears to have largely sidestepped the Israeli intelligence infiltration that killed its senior leadership in recent years. That regeneration power, said Ramzi Mardini, the co-founder of Geopol Labs, a Middle East-based geopolitical risk advisory firm, is a central and most important characteristic of the Axis. Although many dismiss the members as mere proxies of Iran, they are instead deeply rooted groups embedded within social bases, political movements, and state institutions. What looks like a resurgence is better understood as resilience. These organizations have the capacity to absorb enormous losses, adapt, and revive their capabilities and membership, even when it appears they have been permanently degraded or destroyed, Mardani said. We tend to assume their resilience and capabilities are externally procured when, in fact, much of that power is locally produced, he said. Salisbury agreed, adding that Axis members are also able to call on the pool of knowledge shared among them. Experience fielding weapons in one theater can inform fighting in another. The collective result has been a multi-front conundrum that the U.S. and Israel cannot easily solve without incurring costs their allies are unwilling to bear. Iran has a hybrid strategy in the current war, wrote Mahdi Mohammadi, a senior advisor to Iran's chief negotiator, in a post on X. We're not fighting in one front, and we're not using one tool. The fronts and tools are integrated into one operational platform, he wrote. Recent successes have also flipped the narrative on Tehran's investment in the Axis and its effectiveness. I genuinely see Iran's relationship with the Axis as one of interdependence. It derives some of its strength, information, and access to global markets through these different groups, Salisbury said. After a variety of shocks in the last 3 years, you can argue that the investment has proven more worthwhile than people thought. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. As AI speeds up elder fraud, their kids face a fallout. It's the kind of call that makes Clayton Leah Bratton's blood boil. Leah Bratton, senior executive spokesperson at Truecaller, a caller ID and spam blocking application, said the man called in recently asking for help. His mother, a grieving widow, had been scammed out of more than $7,000. Scammers told her they'd worked with her late husband to cover up tax evasion records, and in order to preserve what was left of her inheritance, she had to pay up. By the time her adult son found out about the scam, it was too late. Using artificial intelligence, scammers are scouring obituaries and looking for vulnerabilities, Leah Bratton said. It's so disgusting, I can barely keep my cool about it. Leah Bratton couldn't help the family recover any of the money they'd lost, but he said the family was able to seal off the widow's bank accounts, and now anytime she moves money from one of her adult children has to approve it. More adult children are becoming liaisons between their parents and their parents' bank accounts as AI makes fraud harder to spot. As members of the sandwich generation, many of these caregivers are already facing overwhelming emotional and financial strain while caring for their children and aging parents. Add in elder fraud and the pressure compounds, Leah Bratton said. There were more than 200,000 cyber crime complaints made to the FBI in 2025 by victims 60 and older, totaling nearly $8 billion in losses, and those numbers are underreported, experts told USA Today. Some of today's sandwich generation caregivers feel compelled to filter their parents' every call, text, instant message, and piece of snail mail to avoid the financial devastation of a scam. Ian Bednowitz, general manager of at LifeLock, an identity theft protection service, did just that after his mother's paid caregiver stole her identity to open fraudulent loans and credit cards in her name. Bednowitz said he cleared all sensitive financial documents out of his mother's house and redirected her mail to a third-party site to be scanned. He told her doctors not to provide her caregivers with paper documents after visits. He couldn't risk another breach of his mother's privacy. I was already under financial stress taking care of my mom. You know it's not cheap to have caregivers in the home, Bednowitz said. I can't tell you the despair and weight that I felt. How'd you fall for that? Fraud fallout hits more than just finances. Elder fraud isn't new, but more seniors than ever before are embracing smartphones, Leah Bratton said, and in some cases spending just as much time online as today's kids. Bednowitz said things have gotten worse since his mother's fraud incident in 2016, mainly because of the rise of AI. Being proactive about protecting seniors from scams is imperative, he said, but he also understands the barriers for some families. Most caregivers put scams and privacy data at the bottom of the list of things they're caring about. Just like me, they're worried about the physical health and mental health of the individual, he said. But if you neglect that, then it can cause much bigger problems down the road. Patrick Coughlin, a cybersecurity expert and author, said the mental health impact of scams is sometimes just as crushing as the financial hit, leaving victims and their families feeling ashamed and isolated. The first thing people say is, "How'd you fall for that?" he said. That shame can lead seniors to keep quiet about a scam for longer, potentially losing even more cash in the process. Accelerating the fraud industry. AI has made scams even more convincing, Leah Bratton said. Con artists can use AI to research victims' identify which scam might work best on the person, craft the perfect script, and create a deepfake image, voice, or video to deliver the messages. AI also makes it possible for scammers to make thousands of these calls at once. They don't necessarily commit the fraud on the first call, Leah Bratton said. They may just be gathering personal personally identifiable information to leverage against you in the future. Cyber criminals run their scam operations like businesses, Conklin said. Some of them are leveraging AI better than legitimate businesses in the United States, only their customers are fraud victims and their sales are stolen goods. The good news, several anti-fraud companies are using AI to combat bad actors and identify fraud. Apps like Careful or Conklin's Savvy Security help caregivers keep tabs on their loved ones' accounts for any suspicious transactions. Still, Leah Broughton said it's important that caregivers talk with their aging loved ones about fraud, not to make them feel paranoid, he said, but to help them understand how common fraud is and what scams are trending. Truecaller keeps a list of trending scams on its website, and the National Council on Aging recently posted a list of the most popular financial scams targeting older adults. If you or your loved one does fall victim to a scam, be sure to take screenshots and save other documentation so you can report it. But the best approach, Bednowitz said, is prevention. Don't wait until something happened, because then it's a lot harder to resolve, he said. Make sure you're protecting all their data, not just their physical and mental health. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Disney, ABC sue FCC over license threats. Washington. Disney and its ABC unit sued the Federal Communications Commission on Tuesday to block an early review of licenses for 8 ABC stations, arguing that the Trump administration is trying to punish the network over its broadcast content. President Trump has repeatedly urged broadcasters to drop comedy or news programs he dislikes or which have been critical, and has pressed the FCC on numerous occasions to revoke ABC's licenses. In a lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court in Washington, Disney said the FCC was seeking to coerce and retaliate against a network that refuses to bow to the administration's demands, calling the agency's actions an extraordinary assault on free speech. Trump has waged an aggressive series of attacks on the news media, and the latest move follows a 2-year-long battle between Trump and Disney. Last month, Trump again called for ABC stations to lose their licenses because the network refused to air a primetime speech on elections. The court case will pose a key test of the free speech rights of media outlets. Disney and ABC asked the court to quickly issue a temporary restraining order halting the license renewal proceedings and preventing the FCC from scheduling a hearing. The company said the public comment period ended earlier this month, and the FCC could act at any time. The lawsuit alleges that the administration is violating the company's First Amendment free speech rights, saying that the FCC is using its regulatory power to retaliate against Disney and ABC for programming and editorial decisions the administration dislikes. The FCC said the move stemmed from a year-long investigation into whether Disney's diversity policies amounted to unlawful discrimination, an allegation the company denies. The U.S. District Judge Lauren Ali Khan issued an order Tuesday directing the company and the FCC to propose a schedule for considering the request for a temporary restraining order, and told the agency to notify her if it moves to start the process of revoking ABC licenses. The White House did not immediately comment. FCC Chair Brendan Carr ordered the reviews in April, even though the station's license renewals were not scheduled to be considered before October 2028. The FCC has not ordered an early review in more than 50 years before April. Carr has repeatedly said he wants to enforce the FCC's public interest obligation for broadcasters that use the public airwaves, which he says the FCC has failed to properly deploy for decades. An FCC spokesperson said all broadcasters have a legal obligation to operate in the public interest, and noted the agency's ongoing investigation into Disney's diversity practices. Disney is obviously very concerned about the FCC proceeding, the agency said. The FCC will follow the facts and law wherever they lead. Democratic FCC Commissioner Ana Gomez said on Tuesday that for months the FCC has waged a campaign of censorship and control against Disney's ABC stations, using the threat of broadcast license revocations to punish a company for speech this administration doesn't like. The reviews were ordered a day after Trump urged ABC to fire late-night host Jimmy Kimmel. Broadcast stations need FCC license to use public airwaves. While license revocations are extremely rare, critics say the threat of losing a license can pressure broadcasters and raise concerns about government interference in editorial and programming decisions. Networks have broad First Amendment protections over programming choices. Trump called in November for the FCC to revoke the ABC's licenses after he criticized an ABC News correspondent for asking Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince about the 2018 killing of a Washington Post columnist, and a question the president described as insubordinate. The FCC is also investigating ABC daytime talk show The View. Disney noted that since February, the program has not invited any political candidates to appear, citing the FCC's pressure campaign. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, August 19, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella
and Larry Beenan. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio Reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555. And thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability